Colo's
Oh, really?
teammate. Jamili and Colo are not the best of friends, I would say. They're definitely highly competitive against each other, so this is a bit of a grudge match, not to try and fire any shots. So I'm curious to see who comes out today. Noble are breaking out their Feral Druid Shadow Priest composition that looked very effective earlier today. Let's see if it's still the case against the Super Rejects.
Yeah, Thugonomics, as well as Colo and Envious, they're going to be playing center field. RubCub a little bit far away right now. Fear spam coming in from Thugonomics. Big pressure onto Jamili. Full fear on RubCub. Jamili almost gets taken down instantly. Dispersion is forced out.
Yeah, that crusade from Envious paid dividends. RubCub didn't really overreact, though, and now he's leading the charge, Avenging Crusader. It's basically 3 DPS on the back of Thugonomics. How are they going to deal with this aggressive assault? Seems like they're just fine to tank it out with healing waves. No cooldowns being traded out. Hammer of Justice on RubCub during the Avenging Crusader. A nice play there. Potentially any follow-up now with Silence. Jamili dipping low, no dispersion. Needs to be careful. Sacrifice traded out by RubCub, and Noble are falling very far behind.
Yeah, RubCub is going to be gating away behind the pillar, trying to top himself off. That sacrifice damage was huge from that Chaos Bolt onto Jamili. Oh, taking a little bit of pressure right now. You can see RubCub still rotting down. There's a full silence on a Colo. Can they take him down? Blessing of Sanctuary going to be used by Envious to keep him alive. Maim stun onto Thugonomics. Bash onto Envious. Double fear coming in from Jamili. RubCub looking for the Repentance to close out this game. Thugonomics a little bit low, but he still has that unending resolve, which is super powerful for the Destruction Warlock.
Fear spam from Thugonomics, landing onto RubCub. Now a Hammer of Justice. Human Racial from RubCub will allow him to break out of that. Chaos Bolt straight to Jamili. No dispersion for 10 more seconds. RubCub has Avenging Crusader. He's going to pull the trigger immediately to try and save Jamili. Will it be enough? He jumps into Void Form, trying to dish out some counter aggression. I'd almost like to see them switch to Colo. Colo's just standing right on top of his team. They could just triple cleave them. Greki can get bleeds on 3 targets. I'd love to see them switch to that. Colo's trying to tank it out with Ascendance and race against it with Chaos Bolt pressure instead. They've managed to force RubCub to retreat away. He gets Hammered of Justice. Now they're stacking up for... Whoa! That was a big one.
Good night, Greki.
That wasn't even Soul Harvest.
That was not Soul Harvest, but that was a huge Chaos Bolt, and that's what can happen. And honestly, I don't like this composition coming in from Noble, especially with the melee wings. The Avenging Crusader, anytime he has the Avenging Crusader, he charges out and just gets fear spammed on it.
I guess the mindset behind it is we can deal with rot pressure a little bit better, but there's not that much rot pressure. I guess it's mainly the cleave pressure from the red that they want to deal with, but at the same time, you only have that one Hand of Sacrifice, that one Blessing of Protection, and that is it. And I mean, melee wings as well. I guess if you push in and you go for the Repentances, that could also be another thing. But I mean, here you can see they're going on to Colo, so it really doesn't make much sense why you wouldn't just play max range and just play Blessed Hands.
Here it is. Fear, Chaos Bolt, goodbye, Greki.
That was Envious at the same time. So as it connected, Envious used his, I think, Blade of Justice right there.
Sure.
Probably got a big one in.
Yeah, sure he did.
He did. I saw the animation.
Big damage coming in from Envious in that setup for sure. But ultimately, Greki will fall. And I mean, this is a good start for Super Rejects. They're up 1-0. If they can win the series, like we said, they are the 4th team to qualify from the North American region. Now, Noble, what are they going to do? Seems like this comp is what they have prepared for this tournament. They used it against Method Orange, using it against Super Rejects, but it didn't look too good.
I mean, they could play some Arcane Mage comp, maybe.
That would be really good into the Ret Paladin, I feel like.
It's pretty good against Ret Paladins. They could, I don't know. This Bear Spray Cleave just seems way too good, honestly, against...
What?
That's what we're calling it, by the way, if you guys didn't know. But yeah, I mean, it seems really effective at anything that just wants to land CC on your healer. You can play with Imp Dispel, get rid of the CCs that way, and then you have, of course, the Ret as well to remove stun lock, so you can shut down a lot of setups that way.
It literally just seems like the comp is just stay alive till you get one shot by Chaos Bolt. Like, everything to keep Colo out of crowd control. He's not going to fall behind on healing. Eventually, Thugonomics gets a Chaos Bolt you can't really handle, or you're surprised by, and you get taken down. It's really interesting to see.
I mean, I think Thunder or some sort of Elemental Shaman Wizard Cleave, where they can just stay at the pillar and kind of poke. I think you need a poke.
Outlaw.
What about Ellie Mage?
It's not the best. It's not the best wizard combo. I would almost see like a Lock Shaman Druid or something. They need a poke comp. They have to sit at the pillar, poking in and out and just kind of whittling them down over time into dampening while they kite the Ret Paladin at the same time. I think that's the kind of setup and strategy that they should be moving for.
Didn't we actually see them run Thunder before? And we saw Super Rejects just play super careful, play very conservative, never push in.
we did.
And
That game on Dalaran.
They ended up dampening Noble. Like, they literally just played super defensive, and then at the end of the game went all in with the Purges and the Wings.
Yeah, but I feel like that game in particular that we're talking about, I feel like Noble could have pushed in way earlier in that game and actually secured it. Whenever they had the pressure, they just didn't commit and just go in, and eventually dampening got high, and then Colo did Colo things, press Purge, and that's it.
Colo did Colo things.
He loves Purge.
Yeah, he does.
He loves it.
He managed to do a good job with it. It is going to be Tolvaron Arena. Noble choosing Tolvaron Arena.
It's got to be a Wizard comp.
It has to be. But
Super
what?
Rejects has the Destro Warlock. It's like, this is Thugonomics playground. Tolvaron Arena. Maybe I wonder if this is Noble being like, yeah, play your Wizard comp, please. Stop playing the Ret Paladin. We don't want to fight this anymore. Please go back to the Holy Priest. It's much
we'll
more
give
manageable.
you your best map. Go ahead.
I think Arcane sub maybe, or even Frost sub RMP, but that's a comp that you've got to at least have some practice on it. But it would just destroy this. Like an EU Frost sub disc, wouldn't it just decimate this team?
Yeah.
So
Well, if it's an EU team.
Oh,
Was it
is that
an
the deciding
A Frost sub team?
factor?
Then no.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
He
The BM.
literally handed that one to me. I walked into it.
Okay. Didn't they try this as well and they just got Chaos Bolted later in dampening on the same map?
I don't know how I feel about this composition. I feel like the Assassination Rogue isn't going to be super effective on this large map. They have the Ret that provides the Blessing of Protection. Maybe it's okay.
I would honestly like to see Rubcup, Holy Pala, Goreki Ellie, and Jamili Arcane Mage. Out of the things they have, they can just
They
kite the
play
Ret
double
forever.
Ellie.
Double Arcane Mage.
No, double Ellie. Double Voodoo Totem to shut down the Chaos Bolt.
Why is this desk a meme?
What do you mean?
What are you talking about?
That's a good comp. We've seen these teams use that composition before, okay? It's not a joke.
Everyone's at home writing this down like, I'm double Ellie, LFG, looking for team, double Ellie. Venruki said it was good.
You can quote me on that.
It's good.
Yeah.
They totally didn't get farmed when they played double Ellie.
But yeah, Noble bringing in Roasties on the Assassination Rogue against Super Rejects. We'll have to see. Feels like Super Rejects is really comfortable with this competition, and they know the strategy they need to pull off to win.
Honestly, I think the Druid and the Ellie, I like that
I
a
like
lot.
that too.
That's great, but what is the Acerog doing here? I even think Outlaw would have been a better pick here. I don't see the Acerog just being effective enough, being able to stay out in the open long enough to actually make a difference in the matchup, whereas an Outlaw Rogue at least can, fly around the map and get those big stuns.
I have an idea here. He's going to be a ranged assassination rogue. He's literally just going to sit on the pillar throwing poisons on people to get the Mortal Strike effect. Yeah, he's a dart thrower rogue spec. He could do it. I mean, he could just sit on the pillar throwing poisons onto people just to help Jamili whittle them down. But still, I feel like the rogue is he's going to be a third wheel, basically.
It seemed like 60% of Twitch chat voted for Super Rejects in the Twitch poll. 40% of you going for Noble. Very early on, Rosie's going to be opening up on Envious, spreading that Assassination Rogue pressure onto both DPS.
Yeah, he's got a decent position. This is great for Roasties early on. He's opening with a blind. Trinket from Colo, fair trade, but they haven't committed Vendetta just yet. Envious can back him up for that, however. Thugonomics, double Mortal Coil, big Chaos Bolt, Hammer of Justice, no Fate, tons of damage. They don't want to throw this away. They're going to lose the swing advantage potentially if they do. Roasties does recover ultimately with the Iron Bark timed by Goreki. A bit of a close call, though, for Noble early on.
Yep, so Goreki, he has one Dispel. Hammer of Justice on Roasties. Guess what? You dispel that, you're into the full Mortal Coil, or vice versa. You throw out the Mortal Coil, Goreki dispels it. Yeah, that's when the Hammer of Justice comes. And Super Rejects is really good at abusing the fact that healers only have one Dispel, especially the rest of Druid. Now, full Keating Shot onto Envious. Cole is going to respond with the Earthen Shield Totem. Roasties immediately changing his target over on a Thugonomics, realizing that damage reduction is going to be a little bit too much. But here's the Hammer of Justice. Are they going to be able to find the damage? A little bit of pressure over on the Roasties, but it doesn't look like he is going to be in too much trouble.
No Dispel on that Hammer of Justice. I wonder if Goreki maybe dispelled something earlier on, but Roasties had to sit through that during his Vendetta and lost a lot of pressure. Colo, in the meantime, doing a good job maintaining his mana. They still have the advantage of the Druid over the Shaman in mana, so Colo may need to look for drinks early on, which I think he's doing. That's really smart. Even though it looks like he's not down that much mana, he needs to constantly drink to stay on par with the Druid.
Yeah, and I think it is intelligent to stay ahead. That way he has enough mana if the game goes long enough to actually throw out those offensive purges, and that's where we can see his team really snowball like we've seen in the past. Envious struggling to find his target on that Retribution Paladin, finally landing a Hammer of Justice onto Jamili, putting on a little bit of pressure. In the meantime, Thuganomics throwing out some Chaos Bolts onto Roasties, setting him up with the Fears into the Chaos Bolts. Now Envious coming back, looking for a swap.
All right, Thuganomics, Chaos Bolts flying. Roasty's Cloak of Shadows used there before the Crusade, so Roasty's could be a kill target if they bait him behind the pillar. This game likely to last some time as both teams are quite durable and focused on defense. Jamili looking to get back to the pillar, doesn't want to be exposed. Trying to sneak in a Stormkeeper, gets feared away. Kidney shot on Envious, he trinkets out of that. Not the Vendetta, however, and this maybe could be punished moving forward with a blind attempt. We see a Mortal Coil, nice Dispel from Gorecki. Hammer of Justice on the Dispel, and this seems to be what they're doing, is just exploiting the Rogue. Just Dispel, Mortal Coil, full stun, as you said earlier, or the other way around. Hammer of Justice gets Dispel, full Mortal Coil, and just focus down the Rogue and try and actually run Gorecki out of mana.
Well, he's the only real target. You can see Jamili and Gorecki positioned so far away. If Envious gets overextended onto Jamili, that's when the full Cyclones land, and Gorecki can start controlling him up, and that allows Jamili to push in and get that pressure he needs onto Thuganomics. Full Kidney Shot now onto Envious. He's going to be completely fine. Doesn't need to trinket out of that. Colo's got the heals, but what he doesn't have is the mana. He's a little bit behind right now when you compare him over to Gorecki.
Yeah, but when we move into Dampening, if Colo can maintain mana, he'll be able to just mash out Purges. Nice sap found onto Colo. I think he was trying to drink and he got punished by Roasties. Now Envious could be in trouble with Vendetta pop. They could force a Divine Shield. It's very important that they get it. Earthen Shield Totem is denying it for now. Roasties trinkets out. He knows he needs to get it. Jamili, in the meantime, making a switch of his own to Thuganomics and trying to solo a cooldown from him, but not finding it, unfortunately. The Vendetta not netting the Divine Shield, which it really needed to find to force Envious defensive. They do still have decent pressure. Colo trying to spam heal through that. Envious marching towards Jamili. Jamili doing a good job of creating distance on Elemental Shaman. It's all about avoiding damage and avoiding the Ret Paladin. You see Envious walking towards Jamili. Jamili immediately kiting back, trying to waste as much time of Envious as possible. Kidney shot onto Thuganomics. Jamili opting to just go for damage. Ice Fury, a lot of Frost Shock pressure here. Earth Shock, Thuganomics down to half. Still doesn't even have to trade out the unending resolve. I'm almost wondering if that's a mistake to try and hold on to the cooldowns at Colo's expense of mana. Double Mortal Coil, Chaos Bolt, Nether Ward to protect the interrupt. Iron Bark stabilizes Jamili, though. Good reaction from Gorecki.
Yep, Thuganomics, big pressure coming in from him. Envious still just attacking Roasties. Really the only target he can find. Full Fear now over onto Jamili. The Iron Bark was committed on that last Chaos Bolt, so maybe they could take Roasties down. He does not have a Trinket. Does have Evasion and Cloak of Shadows, but if they can get a nice setup with the Mortal Coil, with the Hammer of Justice, they might be able to take him down.
All right, Thuganomics looking for some defensive fears onto Roasties and trying to Hammer of Justice the Dispel, and that seems to be the name of the game for Noble. In the meantime, Gorecki trying to drink, as this is likely to be a mana battle as both healers are drinking back to full mana. They're trying to punish during those drink attempts with Vendetta popped over onto Envious. Jamili attacking the non-Earthshield target, desperately trying to run Colo out of mana faster than Gorecki, but with this map being so large, it's just so easy to drink and reset those mana pools.
Yep, Thuganomics still looking for some pressure. Envious, like I said, just really struggling to find anyone except Roasties as a target. Jamili doing an excellent job just kiting, running away, dispelling the freedom. Now Envious making Hammer of Justice swap over onto Roasties. Big pressure coming in, but a Hex onto Thuganomics with a blind on Colo will shut that down. Roasties will ultimately survive, but no Cloak. He still has the advantage, still has the evasion if he needs to ultimately use those, but Gorecki does not want to have to use the Iron Bark this early on.
All right, Jamili did a great job there delaying Thuganomics from casting Chaos Bolt. Roasties could have easily gone down if Thuganomics could connect that Hex into a Thunderstorm, denied the Chaos Bolt long enough for Roasties to restabilize. Chaos Bolt now into Jamili, getting caught in the center of the map. Envious finally getting some uptime. Big Templar's Verdict damage. Jamili on the run. Astral Shift will sustain him for now as Envious switches back to Roasties. Stormkeeper, Chain Lightning from Jamili, a triple stack, but not really actually effectively getting anything done. Vanish Garrote onto Colo. Roasties just trying to spread damage onto multiple targets, still trying to burn down the mana of Colo, but it's still evenly matched at this point as we've moved into Dampening, and the deeper that we go, the more difficult it will become to heal through.
Yeah, Thuganomics looking for a Chaos Bolt. They cast the Wind Shear, now looking for a Fear. Manages to get it onto Roasties. Can he find the Chaos Bolt onto Jamili, who does not have that key Astral Shift to survive? He's going to be kiting away from Envious. Envious doesn't want to chase. He realizes he's far gone. Needs to just reconnect to Roasties, but Roasties realizing the situation, he's going to be retreating behind the pillar as well. We are at 8% dampening right now. Colo actually with a little bit of a mana lead.
Yeah, I just don't know. I mean, this is going to be a Chaos Bolt deep and dampening that Gorecki just can't heal through, I feel like, is the result of this game. They need to get Roasties out of here. They need a Wizard Cleave, I think, to deal with this composition from the Super Rejects. And I'm kind of just thinking, what are their options for the next game? I mean, they could have Gorecki, Warlock. I think he's played Warlock at least a little bit. It should be maybe enough. And then they get Rubcub Druid instead and play the Lock Shaman Druid, because right now with this composition, they're just preying on a miracle. It's basically just almost a toss-up into dampening as to who's going to take this double Mortal Coil to deny the swap to Colo off this kidney shot. Good
Demon
heals
Soul
from Thugonomics. Chaos Bolt going straight for Jamili. Iron Bark, will it be enough? Crusade is activated. Soul Harvest is activated, and Jamili could still easily fall. Envious is doing tons of damage. Jamili on the run. Gorecki doing his best. He manages to hold on for now. Crusade is still up, though. Could potentially force an Astral Shift cooldown overlap. Envious trinkets into a bash. Does get out of it with the Ashbringer trinket. Thugonomics gets peeled away, and Jamili survives, but a bit of a close call. And a close call like that. Now Roasties gets off 2 casts while Cloak of Shadows dangerously low on health. Luckily protecting him from holy damage as well as chaos damage, so he will survive. But these close calls, another 20% of dampening, you're dead.
Yep, you are dead indeed, and Gorecki will ultimately fall behind because of that. Roastie's not going to be able to stay into open. You know, Colo's going to be able to throw out purges onto Roasties. Gorecki's going to have to use a whole bunch more mana. Thugonomics now into the Growth Silence. Jamili looking to put a little pressure onto him, but should be fine. He has the 1 minute unending resolve. Still hasn't had to use it once in this game. Roastie's just really struggling to find pressure. There's the double Mortal Coil. Nice Wind Shear coming in from Jamili. Nice Dispel by Gorecki, freeing up Jamili so he could land that Wind Shear to keep Roasties alive.
All right, Chaos Bolt being casted over to Jamili, taking about half his health away. Envious charging with Freedom. Jamili needs to purge that off pretty quickly. Thunderstorms Envious, but he didn't purge off the Freedom. Envious having free space to move, but not opting to go all the way. Ice Fury being casted on this kidney shot. Potentially a lot of damage from Jamili as Envious gets bursted down. Jamili getting feared away. Thugonomics trying to stall this out to survive the vendetta from Roasties. It looks like it's going to be enough. Unending Resolve trades out well on the swap. Now Chaos Bolt's being casted. They can't be interrupted with Unending Resolve. Jamili jumps, but 2 connect. Doesn't seem to be enough to really push him over the edge. He's already in a good position. Gorecki pre-casting healing touches to stabilize. Mana still tied at this point, but if Colo maintains mana to purge into dampening, that's a significant advantage.
22% dampening so far. How high will it get? Fear now onto Roasties. Thugonomics looking to get some damage out right now. Finding the Immolate not going to be that significant. Big burst coming in from Jamili onto Thugonomics. And finally, Colo struggling to heal through some of this Assassination Rope pressure. Roasties trinkets out of the Hammer of Justice. The full kidney shot on Envious. Can he find the pressure to finally get that Divine Shield from him? Doesn't look like it. Colo not in any crowd control. Able to just basically free heal.
Yep, Thugonomics is creating split pressure, attacking Jamili, trying to force Gorecki to switch Life Bloom, which is the main reason why Gorecki's running out of mana actually at a faster pace than Colo. Envious has Crusade activated. He needs to get something done here. If he can get a Cloak of Shadows, then deeper into dampening, they can look to net a kill with the Soul Harvest from Thugonomics. We can see Thugonomics using the Grimoire to summon an Imp for extra bonus damage. Hammer of Justice, Roasties trinkets out, kidney shots Envious. Envious trinkets out. This Crusade could be devastating. Roasties trying desperately to keep Feint up to reduce the incoming pressure. Rain of Fire now onto the enemy team of Noble. Jamili positioned though far away, so they're not triple stacking. Good positioning from Jamili, but still ultimately Gorecki is the one losing on mana. And as soon as we get deeper into dampening, Purge is just going to push someone over the edge, I feel. Envious needs to be a bit careful if he overextends behind this pillar. Thugonomics is going to toss him a gateway, so Envious has a getaway if he gets in trouble behind this pillar.
Yeah, but Envious, this isn't the worst position for him. Lands the full Hammer of Justice onto Jamili. Bash now onto Envious. Jamili actually trinkets out. I'll be trying to avoid that Chaos Bolt coming in, but I think that Roasties had him with the kick, so maybe that trinket was wasted by Jamili. Potential setup there for Rejects a little bit later on as he has no trinket. Gorecki is the only lifeline for Noble at this point in the game. Envious now taking a little bit of spread pressure. We at 32% dampening. It's going to be a struggle for both of these healers. Thugonomics going to be landing a Chaos Bolt. Gets Wind Sheared. Nicely done. Looking for number 2 with a Hex onto Jamili. Lands it onto Roasties. Big burst pressure, but ultimately will survive with the Iron Bark coming in from Gorecki. But as dampening gets higher and higher, every single one of those Chaos Bolts is so much mana to heal through.
I think at this point, this is when you start taking your friendly bets on what % of dampening this game is going to ultimately end at. I'm starting to lean towards the 55 to 60% mark there. I don't know how you're feeling. In the meantime, Thugonomics game bursted down, but does have cooldowns to trade out. Mana is going to be the issue as both healers are almost tied and almost tapped at this point.
Yeah, Colo really struggling to top off his team. Everyone's hovering around 50% HP, and if Roasties can keep up the poisons onto everybody, keep up the consistent pressure, as well as Jamili Colo might be able to finally fall behind, but big Chaos Bolt coming in. Cloak of Shadow is going to be used by Roasties. This is the Demon Soul coming in from Thugonomics. Jamili trying to respond with the Purges, ultimately does remove that cooldown. Now full kitty shot onto Envious. Thugonomics is really struggling to find the damage he needs to close out this game.
Colo trying to protect that Divine Shield, having used Ascendance and Earthen Shield Totem, which should be enough for Envious to potentially stay aggressive. Grecky, in the meantime, managed to sneak a bit of mana for a significant lead, which means Colo will not be able to purge in this position. They're really relying on Envious to carry here with this Crusade, but Jamili denies it with a Thunderstorm. He needs to purge off the Freedom, but he gets caught in a Cap Totem of Fear on Gorecki. Gorecki trinkets out. Double cooldown overlap from Gorecki and Jamili, but at this point in dampening, even with 2 stacked cooldowns, Jamili can't handle the Crusade damage. If Envious can stay on target, he's not able to. He's going to switch back to Roasties. Chaos Bolt being casted. The Hex was 1 second too late. That connects. Roasties in dire straits, but Envious can't connect to the target. Colo repositions behind the pillar, putting an Earthbind, I believe, back there for Envious to reconnect. He gets cheap shot away, but Gorecki is struggling at this point at 43% healing reduction.
Yeah, full blind going to be used onto Thugonomics as well, so Roasties realizing he has to play defensive, but he can't get away from Envious. Look at Envious now looking to connect to Jamili. Full Hammer of Justice goes out. Jamili just decides to trinket out of that, trying to kite away, but he's kiting into the middle of the map. Has the Gust of Wind away. Look at Thugonomics. Here's a Chaos Bolt. It becomes so difficult, like I said, for Gorecki to heal through this pressure. 45% dampening. Every single one of these Chaos Bolts is a nightmare for Gorecki to deal with.
Hit one of them, just hits Jamili in the face. He's trying to heal himself back up, but Roasties is still rotting down from Envious as both teams race to the finish. Colo is completely tapped on mana, has Spirit Link Totem. He's going to have to net that to try and stay aggressive, as this could potentially be a cross kill, moving deeper and deeper. This is the deep end of dampening, getting now close to the 50% mark. Colo's struggling. He's starting to fall behind, and they had an advantage earlier on, but they're starting to lose it. Divine Shield available. The Hammer of Justice Gorecki to make a swap to him. They're trying to create as much spread pressure as possible and just avoid Thugonomics to the bitter end. Fear onto Roasties. A Chaos Bolt off the back of the Fear. He can't use Faint. Ironbark from Gorecki stabilizes Roasties, but now Ironbark won't be available for another person later on, and these Fears into Chaos Bolts could close the game out. Vendetta popped. They're looking to force a Divine Shield. They have to force a Divine Shield if they want to have a shot. Earthen Shield Totem seems to be enough for Envious to absorb it. Thugonomics trying to sneak into Chaos Bolt, trying to fake cast Roasties' kick. A Fear into a Chaos Bolt potentially does get interrupted by Roasties. Colo completely tapped on mana. Gorecki tapped on mana. Who's going to take it? We're at 51% dampening now.
Yeah, we are at the abyss of dampening. This is going to be difficult for both teams. Fear coming out from Thugonomics once again, going for the Chaos Bolt. Still has the Unending Resolve. Full kidney shot on Envious. This could be the Divine Shield, and it can snowball really hard if they can get the Divine Shield. Envious isn't necessarily going to get topped off. They can snowball and take him down through that cooldown. Once again, Gorecki, he's going to be blinking away. He's actually going for a drink right now. I think if he can get a drink here, it's going to be huge for his team, but I don't know how much mana is ultimately going to save him. Colo rotting down, Envious rotting down, Thugonomics rotting down as they make their final push in this game. Gorecki sat down, got a huge drink, kidney shot on Envious, Ice Fury as well. Can they get the Divine Shield? Careful, connects onto Jamili, big pressure. You can see Envious charging in, wants to continue this assault.
Envious should have just Divine Shielded out of that stun. He could easily close this, but he's getting crowd controlled on his Crusade. He needs this Crusade damage to push Gorecki over the edge. I would have loved to see him Divine Shield, but I think he's waited too long. Potential cross kill opportunity for both sides as Jamili just lobbing Lava Burst after Lava Burst. Gorecki moves in for a bash. Colo caught into a kidney shot. Envious Divine Shields out to Sanctuary potentially here for Colo. Ascendance gets used, but he's got no mana. He's relying on just healing waves. Ascendance is now faded. Healing Tide is desperately trying to restabilize. Jamili kiting. Roasties has Cloak of Shadows. He can just press that at any moment to close this game out. He's got Vendetta. Chaos Bolts are flying. Roasties cloaks it. He's going to be pulling back and trying to allow Jamili to carry the rest of this game. Colo's got nothing. Gorecki's got nothing as it's a race to the finish. Envious trinkets out of the stun. Chaos damage is flying straight to Jamili. Trying to line of sight. Full Hammer of Justice. Misses no Divine Shield. He bops. Do they purge it off in time? Doesn't look like they purge it off. He hangs on with a flash of lights, but I do actually believe that Noble are going to be able to pull this off. Maybe, potentially. Now Jamili could have overextended. He's going to jump away. Ironbark keeps him alive, but Chaos Bolt connects, and it's still anyone's match.
Colo actually bandaged Envious to keep him alive there. Full Hex now on Colo. Can they take him down? Fear onto Jamili. You can see Thugonomics trying to get out some pressure. Envious going to be able to reconnect to his target. Dark Soul Chaos Bolt onto Roasties. That might be good night, but ultimately Roasties does survive with the feint spam. Everyone is dying. Roasties getting lower. Envious getting lower. Colo ultimately gets taken down. Noble hangs on to 64% dampening. Roasties getting lower though. It's dispelled out of that Hammer of Justice. Noble is on full retreat right now. Chaos Bolt does connect. Jamili looking like he can't ultimately take down. Believe Thugonomics in this matchup. Roasties charges in. Doesn't have any defensives. Evasion comes up as well. That is going to do it. Noble, 66% dampening.
I swear.
To contest with Super Rejects, tying up the series.
I thought maybe Thugonomics could maybe, if Jamili just like threw the game and accidentally stepped forward, but I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, it worked.
How repeatable is that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Largest map in the pool, 66% dampening, and it was close.
Yeah.
66. Is that the most we've ever had?
66. That's definitely the most.
That's the most. I want to know.
That's the most.
Who we said mid-game, make a friendly bet with your friends. How high is it going to get? Did any of you predict it was going to get to 66% dampening? It was curious. So at one point in the game, I think we were at like 59% dampening or something like that. Envious actually charged in. He didn't have his bubble. He ran behind the pillar, and he had to use his Blessing of Protection to barely survive. I feel like maybe he got a little bit over-aggressive in that situation, because if he had that bot for Colo, they would have survived and maybe been able to close out this game.
Absolutely, and I mean, even earlier when Sid was saying that Envious should use bubble, I completely agree. Envious should have just bubbled as soon as he got rooted, and he should have bubbled when he stunned Gorecki and Jamili was behind the pillar on like 20%. Should just bubble defensive there and just going all in on Gorecki, get him low. Jamili's already low, gives time for Thug and Colo to push in, and then we could have maybe even closed the game out already.
Making those decisions is so difficult, though. You've literally been playing to 60% dampening, and then for that final push, you throw away your bubble. Potentially close out the game, but potentially not. So it can be very, very scary to make those decisions. Sid, do you think this is going to be something that Noble tries to stick with, or do you think that if they stay with this comp, Super Rejects will have an effective answer?
I don't even know if Super Rejects are necessarily going to stay with the same comp. If they lock in the rep pound, they could play a Wizard Cleave of their own into the Elemental Rogue. But I don't know. It's such a toss-up because both these compositions are really not played in a standard...
Unconventional, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Every single team is just playing a composition that really doesn't make sense theoretically if you would look at the ladder and say, oh, these are the best
You guys
comps.
are finally understanding how it feels to be European. You are finally getting it.
But I mean, I'm just trying to say it's too difficult to tell. I said that was a toss-up. It really was. It was like, okay, well, if he Divine Shields at this % of dampening, if this target is in this position, he can win. But then if he doesn't, then he loses 20 seconds later. It's impossible really to predict at that point. So I'm not sure. You
know what I'm kind of curious about? I wonder if Noble intentionally chose Tolvaron Arena to take away the Wizard pick on a blind pick for Super Rejects. So they go to Tolvaron, maybe they have a counter comp for that Wizard comp, whereas if it was in this situation and they had to go in blind, it could have been favorable for Super Rejects with that composition. So maybe they're just trying to map deny.
Elemental Destruction Holy Priest, Super Rejects into Jamili's team? There's no way. I feel like there's no way Jamili's team can beat that. So
why didn't they lock it in?
I mean, maybe they're afraid of something else, potentially. The Holy Priest is counterable. Runes of Lordaeron is a great pick for the Holy Priest, Ellie Destro. There's no pillar to hide behind, and we've seen them play it here. The Chastise stun, the Undispellable stun, just catch Roasties out of position. If you lock a melee class into that, only one melee class in that, it's easy to punish, and I kind of expect that from the Super Rejects here on Runes of Lordaeron.
Yeah, I think it depends, honestly, on what Noble picks here. I mean, Super Rejects, they do have a lot of options, like we have already mentioned, but what is Noble's best pick blind that does good into Bear Spray Cleave and the double Wizard comp that we haven't figured out a name for yet?
Not sure.
I feel like they should just play Rogue Mage. I don't know why Jamili isn't playing Rogue Mage.
It's Lock Shaman. Jamili hates Lock Shaman.
I don't agree.
We all hate Lock Shaman. I literally haven't.
Oh, that's not what I meant. I meant I don't agree with them not playing Rogue Mage. I feel like it's just the best option into Super Rejects overall, but they're going to go with RPS.
Okay.
So a little bit more well-rounded.
Assassination, yeah. Assassination RPS.
I like it.
100% Holy Priest pick here, I think, from Envious.
Think so?
Yeah. I feel like there's a 0% chance they don't play Holy Priest, something along those lines. I would expect Elemental Destruction Warlock because of Runes of Lordaeron with no pillar. So Super Rejects could reverse this quite easily. They've picked that comp in the past on Runes of Lordaeron. We're just waiting to see. They obviously want to talk it out. Maybe Ret Paladin Destro isn't that bad into this. I feel like it is sort of dangerous to run it. I would like to see Envious Holy Priest, mostly because he's probably the best Holy Priest in the world.
Yeah, that's one of the things about Super Rejects is they do have that composition, which is going to be a bit of a surprise if they can manage to qualify for the summer finals. You have the Holy Priest spamming out the smites, resetting a stun. You have the Destro Warlock spamming out Chaos Balls. You have the Elemental Shaman doing Elemental Shaman things, and it's basically a triple threat. And at some point, someone's going to get the free cast and devastate your team, so it can be really scary. I'm kind of curious to see if they do decide to lock it in. I think Noble went with a good comp. I think this is actually an intelligent decision by Noble for the blind pick.
Yeah, and I mean, you can see that Super Rejects they're taking their sweet time right now, figuring out what should they play against the RPS. And Super Rejects, they basically need to think right now, what would we do against the move? What is our best answer? That's what they need to apply.
Could be a tank too.
Could be, yeah. They have played the Blood DK
Please no.
Warrior, I think, before. Okay, they're gonna stick to what they're playing. I think they could take down Jamili on that Shadow Priest with the Destro Ret.
I think so too. Like, the thing is, Jamili on the Shadow Priest is not going to be nearly as mobile as we saw in the Elemental Shaman.
Yeah.
They needed that mobility to survive that long. So Noble's going to have to play a little bit more of an aggressive game. I feel like if they want to close out the game, they can't stall it to that same percentage of dampening, especially on this map.
I don't think it's going to be a stall game.
I don't think so either, yeah.
Maybe Noble tried to stall, but Super Rejects on this map picked it to be aggressive. And I think it's still a decent pick overall. Maybe Holy Priest could get spam purged with the Shaman and the Priest. Maybe they were afraid of that. Ret Paladin can back up against the Assassination Rogue quite effectively with Blessing Protection for Vendetta, Sanctuary for stuns. Thuganomics is very tanky innately. I'm curious to see how Noble play this out. Do they just maybe run down Colo? I think that's too much of a threat from Thuganomics, leaving him open. Do they play middle of the pack, attack the Warlock? Jamili just rots down everyone. This, again, is still a matchup that we really don't get to see very often, and it's kind of difficult to predict who's going to come out ahead.
Yeah, it's super difficult, but I think both teams have a chance to win it. I don't think either team like hard counters the other one and should win it. I think it's going to come down a lot to individual plays, but also just how they abuse the map, like positioning. I think that if Thuganomics gets a lot of uptime, that's obviously going to be super critical for Super Rejects. If you can get out a couple of fears maybe onto Goreki and land a few Chaos Bolts, that's going to set them up and set Envious up for pushing in aggressively and getting the Hammer of Justice and following things up.
Yeah, I think for Goreki on that Wrestler Shaman, it's an effective pick against the Destruction Warlock. You have the Voodoo Totem if you want to shut down the Chaos Bolt with that. You also have the Grounding Totem, which are going to be very strong defensives to slow down some of those Chaos Bolts and give your team an opportunity to really get aggressive.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're tied 1-1 between Noble and Super Rejects. The last game was probably the longest game we've seen in 2018, reaching 66% dampening. This one, however, could be a little bit of a long one, but I expect it to be a bit more aggressive due to the map selection of Ruins of Lordaeron. There's really nowhere to hide. Let's see how Noble deal with this on Ruins of Lordaeron.
Yeah, this won't be anyone's final resting place today as we move forward into game number 3 between Noble and Super Rejects. Critical for both teams to win this series if they want to advance to the summer finals. Double Garrote Silence coming in from Roasties on a Thuganomics and Envious. Full blind now on a Colo. We're going to get aggressive very early on. Colo's actually going to trade out his trinket.
Yeah, and he can safely do that because Envious can Sanctuary the Vendetta, or he's actually Sanctuary on Silence. Now there could be a potential swap to Colo with Vendetta. Roasties keeping his eyes open, pressuring Thuganomics. Chaos Bolt going to be flying, hitting Jamili. Goreki already having Earthen Shield Totem down, though, should easily recover. Envious developing his Crusade, building that up to the critical mass of 50% increased damage. Colo getting step kicked there for a second, but in a decent position to keep the heals rolling. They want to go for that Vendetta, but Thuganomics deflects with a double Mortal Coil. Chaos Bolt towards Roasties, now into the Cap Totem. Good teamwork between Thuganomics and Colo. And Jamili still getting pressured down by Envious. Now a Hex on Roasties, Hammer of Justice on Jamili. I don't really agree with the defensive Hammer of Justice in this matchup. Now Colo in trouble as Vendetta has finally been pulled from Roasties.
Yeah, Roasties getting a little bit low. You can see Goreki just effectively positioning himself behind that gravestone. Thuganomics sort of waddling over there on that Destruction Warlock, trying to land a fear, trying to get any sort of crowd control. Now positioning himself between Jamili and Goreki, which I really, really like. Full silence now to Colo. That gets Blessing of Sanctuary. If Jamili can get in position to fear, it's going to be so difficult, though, as he gets lower and lower. Goreki gets interrupted. Healing Waves finally connect onto Jamili. Dispel coming in on the Hammer of Justice, but still Roasties and Jamili rotting down. Good pressure from Super Rejects.
I mean, the defensive Hammer of Justice is forced Goreki to Dispel, and Dispel is a reasonably expensive spell, so they could potentially get a mana lead off of that, but they lose kill opportunities by not using it on the healer. And it seems like Super Rejects' game plan is to just play defense, 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 run the other team out of mana, and win with damage. Ultimately.
They killed the pet. Look at this. Thuganomics now doesn't have a pet.
We've seen this before.
This is a strategy we've seen before. If they can effectively lock down Thuganomics, stop the interrupts coming in, that's going to be huge for Noble. Full Hammer of Justice on Jamili behind the pillar, so he has to trinket, lands a full fear onto Envious. Gorecki able to easily free heal and top off Jamili here. Thuganomics does get the Fell Hunter out, so it's a big victory there for Super Rejects to keep Thuganomics aggressive.
Yeah, Jamili getting pressured right now by Envious, dishing out a ton of pain, but easily line-of-sighting Thuganomics. Roasty's now trying to go after the healer Colo as they look for a bit of a split pressure strategy. Jamili trying to hit the target without Earth Shield and maximize his pressure and run Colo out of mana, but Gorecki is the one who is falling behind. Chaos Bolt is a lot more difficult to heal through than Vampiric Touch, so Gorecki will be at a mana disadvantage. He drops Earthen Shield Totem down preemptively. Jamili getting feared away though. Crusade is now building up as Envious moves in. He's got Wake of Ashes activated, huge hits potentially. Jamili recovering through it though quite effectively, and now Envious has given up. He's switching targets. Chaos Bolt, potential Templar's verdict for a kill. Roasties needs to be careful. Shadow steps away from it. He's being greedy without trading this Cloak of Shadows, but manages to get away with it.
Full silence on a Colo, gets sanked by Envious to free him up, but Thuganomics still rotting down low. Jamili finally able to get some pressure out on that Shadow Priest, kind of rotting everyone down. We actually do have a Vendetta. Now a kidney shot onto Thuganomics. Can they force the unending resolve? Roasties is going to be turning his attention over onto Colo right away. He deflects it with the Earthen Shield Totem, and Thuganomics playing defense once again, destroying out the fears. Now looking for a Chaos Bolt. Jamili out of line of sight. Good positioning in this matchup by Noble so far. Jamili's trying to solo down Envious. It allows Gorecki to just hide behind the pillar and effectively toss out heals onto Jamili.
Yeah, he gets to hide, but he's losing on mana, so I'm not sure if the dampening strategy is really going to work for Noble. At some point, they're going to have to get aggressive, but with the rep held and support and spam fears, it seems difficult to do so. Roasties is trying to gun down Colo on a one-on-one, but he's getting feared away, and Thuganomics always punishes him with Chaos Bolts, and Gorecki has to spend so much mana. Fear into a Cap Totem. Good teamwork again between Thuganomics and Colo, trying to punish Roasties, and Envious just hits Jamili the whole game, so Gorecki can't have Earth Shield on the correct target. He has to waste mana dispelling the Hammer of Justice, and this sort of drag the game out, split. It's a one-on-one between Envious and Jamili, and a 1v2 between Thuganomics and Colo, and Super Rejects are just slowly but surely gaining a lead.
Yeah, Noble is just slowly losing this game. Gorecki almost going to be tapped on mana. They haven't gotten any defensive cooldowns from Super Rejects whatsoever. This strategy is working out really well, and I think it's those Hammer of Justice coming in from Envious. They bait the Dispel. Now a big swap over onto Colo. Kitty shot into silence. Do they have any follow-up pressure? Thuganomics playing goalkeeper once again with the fear spam onto Roasties. Now Roasties caught in the middle of the map. Thuganomics might be able to pressure that. There's a full Hammer of Justice on Jamili. That's what I'm talking about. It dispels the Hammer of Justice, but now fear on Roasties, not going to get dispelled. The double Mortal Coil comes out. That's not going to get dispelled. And that's really how Super Rejects is able to get these setups.
Yeah, I mean, it's setups to burn mana. It's basically a mana burn strategy without even mana burn existing. We see Fear and a Cap Totem again. Good setup on Roasties. Thuganomics could close this if Roasties not careful. How hard is it going to hit? Not doing that much. He actually Cloak of Shadows. He's going to fair trade that. Jamili has to disperse as Gorecki was caught into a Fear, and the split strategy, the defensive Hammer of Justice is slowly whittling away at the cooldowns. There's really no advantage for Noble right now. Absolutely no openings. They need a miracle.
They do. Dampening has now just kicked in. Jamili getting lower and lower, though. No defensive cooldowns whatsoever. Stun on a Gorecki. Does he have the Spirit Link Totem?
No one's there.
But no one's there as they all dogpile on top of Jamili and land those critical heals. Colo now playing a little bit aggressive, looking for the Hex. Full Hammer of Justice onto Jamili. Hex is secured onto Colo. Nicely done by Gorecki, but doesn't seem like Jamili and Roasties able to capitalize on that. Thuganomics fine. Envy is completely fine. Colo taking a little damage, but he's going to be fine. There's the double Mortal Coil. Chaos Bolt comes in. Roasties with a clutch interrupt. Keep his team alive.
All right, Jamili and Gorecki, though, are now stacked up. Envious can cleave 2 targets. Cap Totem landed on Jamili, dispelled, but Gorecki's burned his mana, pressing Dispel this much. Jamili gets spell locked. He's got nothing left really to survive. Envious goes for another defensive Hammer of Justice. Gorecki can't really even afford to dispel it. He does. Double Fear from Jamili. Healing Tide Totem is down for Gorecki. How much longer can he keep this up? He's finally tapped on mana. We've just started to set into dampening. Thuganomics trades out Unending Resolve almost a bit aggressively and defensively. That lack of Unending Resolve in 13 seconds could be an opening for Roasties to kill Thuganomics with Vendetta if Envious is not careful to use Blessing of Protection in time. Colo caught into a kidney shot. They're desperately trying to make a kill happen there, or at least force some major cooldowns, but they're not finding it. Crusade gets popped. Envious is powering through. Jamili trades out Disperse, but this war of attrition is completely in favor of the Super Rejects.
Yeah, there it is. Hammer of Justice once again. Double Fear coming in from Jamili. Colo caught into the Fear. Can they find any pressure? Envious 100% HP. Thuganomics 100% HP. Jamili now taking most of the pressure. That was Earthen Shield Totem and Dispersion forced out a little bit earlier. Chaos Bolt's going to connect onto Jamili as he sneaks behind the pillar. Interrupt onto Gorecki. He actually is just going to trade out his Astral Shift. Completely fine, but maybe just doesn't want to take any of this cleave pressure. Still, Jamili in a lot of trouble. Cap stun onto Gorecki. Can they find the damage onto Jamili? Full Hammer of Justice. But Gorecki manages to keep him alive. Actually, there's a Void Shift coming in from Jamili. Get Gorecki a little bit low, and maybe that's why he used the Astral Shift to make sure his HP was high enough so Jamili could get that critical swap.
Everyone on the team of Noble is rotting down to the pressure of Envious. Thuganomics uses Unending Resolve. Chaos Bolt not going to be interrupted. Gorecki takes that with the grounding totem. I believe he gets Hex, though. He trinkets the Hex. Now he has no trinket for a stun. Potentially, Jamili is just taking so much damage. Mortal Coil, Thuganomics is moving in. Any damage can easily close this. There's nothing left for Jamili to survive. Super Rejects with the ultimate dampen strategy to take game number 3 and put Noble on match point. One more win away from qualifying to the Summer Finals.
Super Rejects is not afraid to dampen. These guys will do whatever it takes to win, and it makes sense. I mean, there is so much on the line in this series, now up 2-1. They're one game away from guaranteeing their qualification to the Summer Finals. Obviously, very, very exciting for them. On the other hand, Noble, they need to go back to the drawing board. They need to pick a new map. They need to pick a new comp if they want to have any chance of winning this.
Yeah, I mean, Noble, it really didn't convince me at all, the RPS. It didn't feel like they had much going on, if anything at all, really. I think the main issue that I have with the comps that they've been running so far is the Asa Rogue. I think that Roasties should be either a sub-rogue or an Outlaw Rogue, because Outlaw Rogue, like we were talking about earlier, is much better into these Warlock-based setups. And of course, the Assassination Rogue is going to get countered by the red a little bit as well with that Pure of Heart.
Yeah, and I think maybe going on that Outlaw Rogue, giving his team a little bit more swap opportunities, more swap opportunities, I think would be effective. When you have Envious just training down Jamili in that game, instead you can quickly hook over, get the full stun on him, maybe pre-gouge Colo or something like that, create pressure that way, because the spread pressure, consistent damage that we normally see from an Assassination Rogue just isn't being effective until 70% dampening, which is not a reliable strategy.
Yeah, and also with the Assassination Rogue, the only thing you really have is the step kidney shot onto whoever you're going on, but with an Outlaw Rogue, you can actually stay in on Thuganomics, stun him up, gouge him, kick him. You have a lot more lockdown for him, and then you can avoid getting Chaos Bolted, essentially.
I'd like to see an Outlaw Enhancement Shaman from Jamili's team. Jamili's known for playing Enhancement, and I think Enhancement Outlaw would just be enough burst to eventually overwhelm the Destruction Warlock that can't kite you, which is normally the weakness of the Enhancement Shaman. I think overall the compositions that they're running, that Jamili's team is running, are more dampening-oriented comps, but they're running against a team that's running a better dampening-oriented comp, and they're not able to out-dampen them, basically. So instead of trying to out-dampen them, they should try to out-aggress them, I feel.
You can actually out-dampen them as a double melee setup like that. With the Enhancement Shaman and the Outlaw Rogue, you could just do hit-and-run strats. You go in, get Unending Resolve, hide behind the pillar. You do that consistently. Later on in dampening, that's when the overlaps happen. Unending Resolve is not enough to stay alive, and they can maybe pull out a strategy like that, but we're kind of waiting right now for Noble's map pick, and then Super Rejects, they're going to be able to choose their composition, but it seems like they're locked on to this Retribution Paladin with the Destruction Warlock.
Burst Cleave.
Yeah, okay, whatever you say. We'll call it that. If that's what you guys want, I'm outvoted here on the desk, but...
Wait, I didn't say it.
Okay, good.
You laughed.
Thank you.
That counts as agreeing.
That counts? Laughing?
Oh, yeah.
Laughing is a vote for yes?
Absolutely.
Apparently. But
Okay,
yeah.
so we are going to have Ashamen's Fall. Big map. Is that telling what we might see? Maybe a Resto Druid Elemental, and then some kind of third. Could be a caster, it could be an Outlaw Rogue, a warrior potentially.
Could they want, like, is there any chance Noble goes back to the Assassination Rogue Elemental Shaman? Like, I just feel like it's so inconsistent. Like, I don't know if they're going to be able to do it again on a map like this. I don't know. I'd really want to see Roasties switch it up outside of the Assassination Rogue.
I agree. I think, I mean, even a sub-rogue would be so much better, because you can at least have those extra stuns. You can stun, and you can hit and run, and then if the red pushes over, you have an Elemental Shaman to deal with that. It's, I don't know. If they stack up as well, like if they push in, if the red pushes in, then the Warlock and the Resto Shaman has to follow him, and then you have that triple stack that you want as a sub-rogue, and you can get those triple stuns out, maybe follow it up with a Cyclone, Hex, and then all of a sudden you have a setup and people are dying.
Yep. The setup, crowd control into burst. something we could see from Noble, or they could go back to sort of the dampening strategy with the Assassination Rogue and the Elemental Shaman and try to beat Super Rejects at their own game. But Super Rejects, this is their comfort zone. They want to play these long games where Thugonomics can just sit there and get out that consistent damage with the Chaos Bolts. It just seems like this playstyle really works out for them.
They're going to go for the Assassination Alley Resto Druid.
I don't like it.
I mean, they did win the game with it on Tolveron, but I mean, even if they manage to win this game, Super Rejects could just pick a small map, play against the same thing, and win that way. They could change their comp as well to something that counters it a little bit more. Super Rejects have all the cards at this point.
What?
What
is that face? Oh, this is the face of dampening?
No, I don't know. I'm just worried. I mean, this is the tournament lives for Noble. They have to qualify, or they have to win this to even have a chance of qualifying, or they don't go. Noble made it to the spring finals. They're risking not making it to the summer finals by going down to the Super Rejects, and they're picking a composition that, at best, is a toss-up after you've played a 16-minute game.
And you never won a 16-minute game against a Destruction Warlock, because at any moment your character's life could be ended immediately by a Chaos Bolt. So if Super Rejects can stall out the game, there's a high probability they're going to find that burst damage and take you down. I feel like Noble, they got fortunate. They really didn't have any sort of consistent pressure throughout most of the game until dampening got higher and higher. They just didn't put any crowd control on Colo. He was basically uncontested, got the free drink, and I think on a smaller map where Noble doesn't have the same opportunity to sort of kite and run away, it's going to be better for Super Rejects.
Yeah, but on this map, this is pretty much the second largest one, so this is as good as it gets if you are going to play this strategy as Noble. This is the map to do it on. You have the Resto Druid, you have the Elemental Shaman, they can stay back, and then you have the Asa Rogue, very tanky rogue spec, has a lot of HP, spammable Feint, of course the Crimson Vial as well, that reduces damage, so they can kind of use Roasties as their like meat shield in the front, and they can keep him alive easily, and then try to dampen, but it's going to be a tall order, 66% dampening.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see if they can make it that far again, or if Noble can close out the game a little bit earlier on. Super Rejects just one game away from qualifying. If they win this, they will be eliminating Noble from the tournament, and their hopes and dreams of qualifying Noble. They have to win 2 in a row, then they have to take down Super Frogs, then they have to play Super Rejects again, so this is going to be a difficult path indeed.
Noble are completely putting their odds in Fate's hands. This is a toss-up at best, deep into dampening. If they make even one slight mistake, a Chaos Bolt could easily close this game. Noble put everything on the line to chance. Will they be able to pull it off against the Super Rejects? If they don't, they'll be going home, and Super Rejects will advance to the summer finals, rounding out our top 4 teams. At this point, Jamili and Gorecki doing their best to just avoid damage, and as Zika was pointing out in the analysis, Roasties is basically a meat shield sitting out in midfield with Life Bloom and Feint trying to tank damage, while Jamili just pokes in and out from the pillar.
Yeah, Thugonomics getting interrupted on that Chaos Bolt once again. That is the name of the game for Noble. Slow down Thugonomics at all costs. They need to be on point with those interrupts. Thugonomics game, get off Chaos Bolts. Pretty simple for both teams. Roasty's going to be trying to run away as he's taking quite a bit of damage here from the Crusade of Envious. Double Coil going to be coming in once again onto Gorecki and Roasty's. Actually, Roasty's pre-Cloak of Shadowed that, so very nicely done.
Yeah, but Envious is moving in for a triple stack. He gets Thunderstormed away. Good Thunderstorm from Jamili. They need to close distance from this Ret Paladin, but now stacked up for a Cap Totem from Colo. Nice placement. If they stay as 3 members on top of each other in Rain of Fire and Divine Storm, it's going to be really difficult for them to heal. I do not like this stack up from the team of Noble. Envious knows that. He's going to Trinket and get aggressive to develop more momentum. If they can burn Gorecki's mana before even getting into dampening, it would be quite the advantage. Jamili and Roasties rotting down as Thugonomics rains Chaos Bolts from above, potentially at the back of that Fear. Chaos Bolt connects to Jamili. Gorecki positioned. I like the kiting. They need to stay away from Envious if they're going to drag this out to dampening, but even if they do that, I'm not sure if they're going to be able to overcome Chaos Bolt damage from Thugonomics.
Yeah, another Chaos Bolt lands on Roasty's. Double Coil going to be going out. Full hacks now onto Colo. Can they get the bubble from Envious? Doesn't look like they're going to be able to. Roasty's taking a Chaos Bolt, but it gets deflected by that Iron Bar coming in from Gorecki. Now full Hodge onto Jamili as they look for some pressure onto him. Portals being summoned out out by Thugonomics. You can see all that fiery damage going out onto Jamili and Roasties. Gorecki actually moving in, looking like he wants to find a bash. Manages to land it onto Envious to slow down some of that damage. It's a nice decision to make as that wrestler drew. To get interrupted, you can't heal, so the best you can do is try to control your team, or the enemy team.
Thugonomics casting some Chaos Bolts. Jamili catching one mid-air, almost like a basketball with that gust of wind, but he's going to get topped off. Envious trying to switch to Gorecki. He gets hexed up. Colo with a nice dispel there. Healing Tide Totem used by Colo. Not really entirely necessary there. Maybe he could have saved it for some cooldown trades or crowd control chains later on. Envious getting punished for this overextension, though, by Roasties. Nice awareness from him to switch back. Chaos Bolts from Thugonomics trying to lob out towards Jamili. Envious trying to cleave down Gorecki. Envious playing a lot more aggressive this game. Colo caught into a blind, trades at the Trinket. That's a fair trade, but Crusade is rolling for Envious. He's going to be doing a ton of damage, already forcing Barkskin and Astral Shift from both players, Gorecki and Jamili, putting them behind. Envious still ramping up. Roasties could have to Cloak of Shadow. Cenarian Ward used onto him to recover. A big heal over time effect. I'd love to see Colo drink during these moments when Noble is playing so overly defensive.
Yep, Thugonomics finding a Chaos Bolt once again on Jamili, who's forced behind the pillar. Envious and Roasties basically exchanging blows on this pillar. Both don't want to stay in the open and take some of that wizard damage very early on. Full Hammer of Justice going to be used onto Roasties. Gets dispelled immediately by Gorecki, but that's what we talked about. Super rejects, they don't mind just throwing out the Hammer of Justice, bait the dispel, and then they can do the setups with the double Mortal Coil. It's kind of an unconventional play, but seems to work out for them.
All right, Roasties has Vendetta available. Thugonomics, so counter-aggression. Chaos Bolt straight to Jamili. He's desperately trying to get away. This is match point. Thunderstorm buys him time to get back behind the pillar and to safety. Thugonomics now trying to set up a swap to Roasties. A Chaos Bolt for him, a Chaos Bolt for you, a Chaos Bolt for everybody, says Chef Chaos Bolt extraordinaire. Thugonomics. Kidney shot on Colo. Vendetta available. Baits out the Sanctuary. They could make, they're just going to all in it on Colo. I think that Noble have had enough. They're going to try and gun down for a healer kill, but it's a risk as Thugonomics is now left open. Chaos Bolts are flying. Jamili gets back to the pillar, though, in time. I'd love to see more swaps like this later into dampening. This could be the weak point that Noble can kind of penetrate through for a win to bring this to a game 5.
Yep, made a swap on a Colo, but really didn't get too much from it. Colo still has every single defensive cooldown and also 100% mana. I think Colo actually managed to set down for a drink at some point, so he's going to be ahead of Gorecki, and Gorecki's going to have a difficult time. He's got a pet on him, this Fell Hunter behind the pillar, just annoying him, keeping him in combat. Now, full kidney shot on Colo as they make another swap onto him. He's getting lower and lower. Big burst coming in from Noble, almost closing out the game, but the blessing of protection from Envious will ultimately save Colo's life.
Yeah, but that was a blessing of protection used outside of Vendetta, and these kind of poke, hit, and run swaps to Colo are working quite effectively for Noble, and deeper into dampening, Colo is not going to have that luxury to recover, but Gorecki gets caught in a Hammer of Justice and gets completely erased. Envious moves in, and Gorecki gets clotheslined. Super rejects are going to Poland, eliminating Noble from the competition.
That